Hello everybody and welcome to another video. Today we are going to be taking a look at how to make the proper Simbrief profile for the 777 V2 by FlightFactor. Since the airplane has many different options that you can choose from, such as cabin layout, cargo layout, and so on, we'll be discussing how to properly reflect those changes that you make in the Simbrief profile. Of course, we'll also be linking all Simbrief profiles that we have available in the description, so you can always take a look at them, make a copy, and make your own. As hinted, we'll also be taking a look at the options that are available in the EFB and what they really mean, and then, of course, applying those to Simbrief. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So this is the Simbrief profile that I currently have for the 777 V2. We have a lot of different options to choose from, and the most important things are, of course, our weights. We need to make sure that we have the correct number of passengers, we have the correct amount of cargo, the fuel, the empty weight, all that good stuff, in order to make the proper fuel calculations for our flight. Of course, a couple kilos or a couple pounds will not make the biggest difference in fuel burn, but sometimes it can help, especially if you're choosing between a 1-class airplane that has, for example, 440 passengers, or something like a 3-class cabin that has only 299. That's a big difference, and that could cause potential issues if you don't choose the right options. So for starters, we can see that in our dispatcher remarks, I have all the different options available, at least the base options that we can choose from, at least for the 200ER at the moment. We have the GE90s-90Bs, the Pratt & Whitney's 4090s, and the Rolls-Royce Trent's 892s. I have all the different types of takeoff thrusts in pounds, as well as the TREF, which is the takeoff thrust flat rating. So if you wanted to go realistic and you wanted to make a profile for each different engine variant, you could do so very simply by taking this number here and replacing it with this number here, and taking this number, which in this case is 30 for all 3 engines anyways, and putting it in here. Then we're going to also be taking a look at the different class options. We have 5 standard class options, but of course there's also customizability. So you can do your own cabin layout as you desire in the FlightFactor 777-200. This is something we obviously cannot reflect in such small notes, so we just chose to add the 5 default ones that you can choose from. And if you choose any of these 5, you can then update your max passenger count to that class variant. And we'll go over that here in a moment. Same thing goes for cargo. You can choose the different cargo layouts, and there are 4 different base profiles that we have that you can choose from, and then depending on which one you choose, you can then update your max cargo weight there as well. The rest of the information should be relatively standard throughout all different options, and the only other option that will require some change is potentially your minimum runway length and your measure of units. Alright, so let's take a look at these options that are available. In order to get to this page, which is the page we want, we'll go from menu, into simulation, into airplane configuration. And the way we can configure, there's one thing that we need to make sure that we also apply once we are done with all the configurations we want to do, but I'll get to that. So first, let's go to cabin configuration. And here you can see all the different styles that I was talking about, the 5 base styles that we offer. Now, if you wanted to play around with this, it is possible to do so, which I've also made a tutorial about already in the past. However, I like to choose the 3 class as I think that is relatively realistic and relatively average for most airlines. And we can see that our total capacity is 299. So let's go ahead and create this new Simbrief profile. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this airframe, and I'm going to create this based off of my United Airlines livery. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to check the registration of my livery, which is November 77019er. See, I have entered in my civil registration. I'm also going to call this the United, or I'm going to call this UAL for United. So I know that's United Airlines. And I'm going to call it FF or FlightFactor. So I know this is the United livery, this is the United registration from the FlightFactor 777-200ER. And it is not rocking the GE90s, it is rocking the Pratt & Whitneys. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this into here, 30 degrees is already set. I'm going to copy the engine name into here as well, just for extra realism. Wonderful. I will use pounds as my standard, which we'll check here in a moment where we can set that. For now, I'm going to go ahead and save this already. I'm going to get rid of these comments since I already have my setup done. So I said I want the 3 cabin type class, or 3 class cabin type, which gives me 299 passengers. So I'm going to go ahead and update my profile to 299, which is checked. Wonderful. Next, we're going to go to our cargo configuration, and here we can choose also different options. We can choose whether we want just the LD3 containers, for example, or if we want freeload on either one or both, or if we want to balance it out a little bit more, if we want only 96-inch pallets, for example, and so on and so forth. We can apply this as much as we want, and depending on how much we change this, you will see the total capacity down here, which means with LD3 containers of 16 slots, I have a total cargo capacity of 172,409 pounds, which I'm also going to reflect right here. So 172,409 pounds of cargo. So I'm going to save that to my United profile. Now, I've also said there's one more thing we need to pay attention to when it comes to weights, and that is indeed our empty weight. This is so dynamic because there's so many variables that we need to change here, that depending on how much you customize it, you can see that our operational empty weight changes with it as well, which we need to reflect. So with all the options that I've now chosen, with my 3 class cabin layout, as well as my 16 slots of LD3 containers, I have an operational empty weight of 308,994 pounds. So I'm going to go ahead and apply that here as well. So 308,994, I believe it was, right? Yep, there we go. And that is my empty weight. So the conditions you need to be wary about is the empty weight, which is going to change based on the cabin configuration you're choosing, as well as how you're going to lay out your cargo holds, the passenger counts, as well as the max cargo weight. The rest of these variables can actually stay for maximum realism. The max fuel weight is most likely always going to be 440. Max takeoff weight 656, and max landing 470. These are standard values that are applicable across the entire fleet for FlightFactor. We also changed our units to pounds, and where we can change that is also relatively simple. We go back, we go to avionics, and then we can see that as long as this is not set, we are in pounds. If we want it in metric units, we can say metric units and select this. The same goes for the minimum runway length. We can enter this here depending on our company that we want to simulate, and the default is normally around 8,000 feet. So if I were to apply that, I could go here, set this to feet, then say 8,000 feet, and save that. So with that done, I'm going to go ahead and remove all of these points because I've set them all as I desire. And then if I wanted to, I can apply the fin number, the cell call, and the mode S. This is all up to you to do. I just wanted to cover the more important parts of a Simbrief profile. Alright, so now let's go ahead and make a flight plan with this. So we're going to go to new flight. We're going to go departure. And let's go ahead and fly from Frankfurt over to Chicago. We're going to fly United. We're going to fly 772. And we're just going to apply the profile that we've made. So I'm going to choose the 777-200ER, and then I'm going to apply my profile. I'll do all my planning as I desire. This is up to you. I'm going to, of course, make this a little bit different once we actually get into the tutorial of how to fly this airplane. And then we can just generate. And it will generate a flight plan based off of your profile that you've made, with all the different changes that you've also done in the FlightFactor airplane itself. So we can see that it plans with the proper weights, the proper max passengers, and so on and so forth. And that is the end of the Simbrief profile tutorial. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you have any additional comments, questions, or concerns, feel free to let us know, and we'll be happy to answer as much as we can. If you want to join our Discord for better interaction, feel free to do that. All the links are in the description. If you have any tickets you need to open for any technical issues, again, the links will be in the description where you can open a ticket for any technical difficulties. Again, we thank you, and we look forward to the next videos with you guys.